Playing music? It's not supposed to be playing music. So, yeah, let me make sure I would request that we have like Lil Wayne playing for me. That's fine. Let's go play.
Okay, we are
Because I'm inspired.
Ended up being DMX instead.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. It is afternoon. We're starting a little bit late today because of some traffic complications around the government center. My name is Douglas A. Welton, and I am the chairman of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. Welcome to our May 13th, 2024 work session. Next slide. Is that what I'm supposed to say? Doop. The Planning Commission work session is being held here at the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Government Center, 600 East 4th Street. We are in room 267. For viewing by the public and the media, today's meeting is being streamed live on the Planning, Design, and Development Department's YouTube page. We begin our meetings with introductions, and I'm going to go to my right and begin with Commissioner Stewart.
Robin Stewart, Planning Commission.
Terry Lansdale, Planning Commission.
Clayton Seeley, Planning Commission.
Teresa McDonald, Planning Commission.
Melissa Gaston, Planning Commission.
Andrew Blumenthal, Planning Commission.
Shauna Neely, Planning Commission.
Karen Shaw, Planning Commission.
Thanks very much. Commissioner Winokur is here, but he will be joining us in a few minutes. He is on an important call saving someone from something. We will begin now with our introductions of staff, and we'll begin with Ms. Holmes on our left here.
Monica Holmes, Deputy Planning Director.
Allison Craig, Planning Director.
Candace Roy, Planning Staff.
Al Knight, Planning Staff.
Thank you very much. We also, because I'll take this moment to mention that if you would like to join the Planning Commission and be one of our fine members, we have vacancies that are available, and you can get those by going to the City of Charlotte's website and looking under the advisory and boards page. Those applications are due by May 30th. And over the last 3 months, we've had folks visiting. So I'm going to introduce some of the folks that are in the audience with us today, because I think we've got 5. We've got Tesho Akindele. Did I get that? Good. We've got Evan Kettler. We've got Brian Foley. We've got Joy Mayo. And we've got Katie Hines, who are all interested in becoming members of the Planning Commission. If you are interested in becoming a member of the Planning Commission, again, go to the City of Charlotte's website and find advisory boards and sign up. And the county website too. Is it advisory boards? There are separate things for the city and the county because we are the Charlotte-Mecklenburg hyphen in the middle Planning Commission. All right, we will get down to business, as they say. And our first order of business is for us to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Do I hear a motion for the disposition of those minutes?
Motion, Seeley.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Seeley and seconded by Commissioner Shaw. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that means our minutes pass and we are on to new business. And the first order of business is our leadership nominations. And we appointed a committee last month. Is that last month? And that was Commissioner Shaw, Commissioner McDonald, and Commissioner Stewart. And they accepted nominations up until May 3rd, right? Yep. And does the committee have a report out?
I don't think the committee has a written report out, but the committee can provide a verbal report if that's acceptable.
That is very acceptable. We will live with that.
So is a report to put forth the potential nominees?
Yes, that would be it.
Okay. So we received 2 nominations. We received a nomination for Andrew Blumenthal for vice chair. We received a nomination for Douglas Walton for chair.
Thank you very much. This is, and Candace, guide me through this. Do we have to accept those nominations first and then ask for others, or do we just ask for others? Okay, all right. Here's the way we're going to do this. I'm going to ask, does anyone want to make a nomination for chair or vice chair from the floor? And I'm going to ask this question 3 times. This would be the first time I would ask it. Does anyone want to make a nomination from the floor? Does anyone want to make a nomination from the floor? Does anyone want to make a nomination from the floor? All right, given that we have no nominations from the floor, I will ask for a motion that we accept the nominations from the committee and a second on that. Do you have a motion?
Commissioner Russell, a motion that we accept the nominees as provided.
Second, Seeley.
It's been moved by Commissioner Russell and seconded by Commissioner Seeley. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That passes. We will have an official vote on these names in June at our next meeting, June 10th. Okay, don't we? Oh, do we do that now? Do you have we have an opportunity to speak. I am driving this train and it is the first time I've been down this track. So let's go with that. Would you like to say something, Commissioner Blumenthal?
Sure. First of all, thank you for the nomination. I think that we have had a very productive 23 and 24, and I very much look forward to what we can accomplish in terms of the UDO, fine tuning things, and continuing to engage with the community in the next 12 months.
Thank you, Commissioner Blumenthal. And I will simply say thank you to my fellow commissioners. I think we've had a fun, action-packed adventure of a year. And I look forward to doing that with you all again. I brag on you immensely. I hang out with 13 of the smartest people in the city. And I mean that as seriously as I possibly can. Thank you very much. Now, am I done? Thank you. Commissioner Lansdale.
Quick question. So for the June 10th vote, would it be possible if staff could maybe provide a list of term appointment dates for us as we prepare to vote? It might be a good refresher for us, or is that online?
Terry, are you like, when do our terms for each commissioner expire? Yeah, I believe we can do that. That's not a problem. It's on my desk at home. So if you want to come to my house, I got you covered. But I will ask staff.
Just a reminder.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Lansdale. All right. I think we're good with our first little bit of new business. I'm excited because today we've got 3 speakers that are going to give us a lot of information about housing, and we're welcoming Commissioner Wilden. Did you get caught up in traffic as well? Okay.
But it still look good, right?
Commissioner Wilden has the best voice of anybody on the commission. Is that what I'm supposed to say? Yeah. All right. I'm excited. We're going to talk about housing in a lot of different ways today. We have Dr. Chu, and I'm going to give this a try. Jung Chang Chu. He said he gave me permission to maybe not quite get it right, but I will let him correct me. But he's going to talk to us about the state of housing. We also have Lindy Reeser, who's going to talk to us from the apartment builder or the Greater Apartment Association, and Jen Schuster is going to talk to us about the Home Builders Association. We will begin with Dr. Chu and up there, and Candace will get your slides up, and then we will rock and roll. And while we're getting ready, this is an opportunity for anybody that wants to go grab food to go grab food. All right. And that includes your guests too. Go grab some food. If you want a slice of pizza, make sure you get in front of Winokur, because Lord only knows what happens if you don't.
Thanks for having me here. So I'm the director of the Children's Science Center at University of College. So
I'm gonna tell you about the housing market in Charlotte. So this is like part of the state of Charlotte housing report the center produces every year since 2019.
Dr. Chu,
Yeah.
can I get you to come to the mic?
uh,
So that we're streaming, so they went from.
Okay.
If you like to wander like I do, a microphone is an evil thing, but because we want everybody to hear you.
Yeah, I never stay at one place when I teach, so it's gonna be hard. Yeah, I think this is better. Thank you. Again, so this is part of the report, and we're gonna do this for the 2024 in November this year as well. Okay, so first I'm gonna give you an overview of the macroeconomy to understand the supply and demand for housing in the Charlotte area. So at the economy level, we only have data from the census, and the latest census data is for the year of 2022. So the kind of things I'm gonna present in the next 5 minutes will be based on that report. So first look at the population growth. Everybody knows Charlotte has had a very robust population growth in recent years. And also I want to say, so because of COVID, the census did not produce any number for the year of 2020. So that's why you do not see 2020 there. So we had the population growth rate has been around 2% every year, except for the COVID years. So the annual average growth rate in 2020 and 2021, the average, because I do not know specifically each year, is 1.21, but it went back to 2% in 2022. Okay, so what does that mean? That means almost about 125 people move to the Charlotte metro area every day. Okay, and if you look at the source of population growth, and then we have mostly is just domestic, and of course, and we had international migration, and natural has been very stable. International decreased significantly during COVID years, but it came back after COVID. So the population, of course, can give us a pretty good idea for kind of a demand of housing. When people move to this area, they need housing. But a better kind of measure to trying to understand demand is look at households. Okay, so here I'm plotting the number of households in the metro area and also the growth rate. Okay, so if you look at in recent years, the number of households grew at a 3.5% rate in 2020. So that means from 2021 to 2022. So population growth at 2%, household growth at 3.5%. So why that's the case? Okay, so there is kind of a pretty dramatic change in the average household size. So if you look at before COVID, the average household size in the metro area has been around 2.64 people per household. It has been very stable over a very long period of time, but that is changing. It's changing dramatically. So by 2022, it's 2.5. You may think 2.64 to 2.5 is not a big change, but look at the margin, because the existing household size doesn't really change much. It's the margin, the people who are moving to this area. So these are young, most likely single professionals moving to this area. Okay, so that can have dramatic implications for housing demand. Think about what kind of housing these young single professionals want to live in. Okay, so that will have big implications for that. We probably need smaller size, high quality housing in the city of Charlotte. So that's the demand side. Now let's look at the supply side. So the supply side here, what we are looking at the number of housing units in the Charlotte metro area over the last almost 10 years. And it's growing, obviously. We are building. But if you look at the number of housing units, it's growing in 2022, 2.44%. Okay, So in recent years, that number is not actually bad. So even compared to like 3.5% household growth rates, it's lower, but that's not bad. However, there has been a kind of chronic underbuilding problem in the city of Charlotte, but Charlotte not special in this case, since the Great Recession. Okay, so here I'm plotting starting from 2014 because that's when we changed the definition of Charlotte MSA. But even before 2014, since the Great Depression, the supply side is just underbuilding relative to the number of households that are living in this area. Okay, you can argue for days why that's happening, but the reality is that that was what's happening. So here, what I'm plotting you is the number of households increased every year versus number of housing units increased. So the number of households increased, you can think of that as the demand side, and number of housing unit increase, you can think of that as the supply side. So you can see before 2017, there's almost always a deficit except 2016, but that goes from 2010 to all the way 2017. And 2018, 2019, the metro area is doing a great job supplying more housing. Okay, it's more than the number of households increase. But COVID actually dramatically changed that. Okay, the 2 years of COVID, 2020, 2021. So the reason why those two bars are super high is because it's 2 years stacked together, because I do not have data for separate years. So in those 2 years, those two COVID years, the metro area created a deficit of 10,000 housing units alone. And then if you add up all the underbuilding that's accumulated since the Great Recession, we are looking at a deficit of about 30 to 40,000 housing units. Okay, so this doesn't mean next year if we build 30 to 40,000 housing units, we solve that problem. No, we need to first build about 35,000 to 40,000 units per year to accommodate people who are moving in. And then on top of that, we need to build additional 30 to 40,000 units to recover that deficit. Okay, so even if we are doing a great job, it will not be done in less than 7 or 8 years. But we are not there because after COVID, although we solved a lot of the supply side, like labor cost, labor shortage, we had very high inflation rate and then very high interest rate. So we've seen increases in, for example, multifamily construction development in Charlotte area in the last 2 years, but that has stopped, almost completely stopped in the last 1.5 years because of the very high interest rate problem. Okay, so we are having a lot of apartments that are going to be here, but that will not be the case if we look 2 years, 3 years from now, because construction has stopped because of the high interest rate environment. Right? So that is the problem that is going to be contributing to the housing costs that people are facing. So here, what I'm going to give you is a more kind of micro level, looking at the housing market, looking at housing prices. So here, I'm relying on data supplied by Canopy Realtors, the local Realtors Association, and I have the data updated until the end of April, so that we can see what's going on. So here I'm plotting the house price changes starting from January 2022 to up until, as I said, April 2024. So it's not, the COVID years are not there. So 2 COVID years, house price increased almost like 50% in the metro area. And then people were arguing, so because of high interest rate, the housing market is cooling down and prices are decreasing. Bad news for you, prices are not decreasing. Okay, so it's not as nearly as crazy as during COVID years. Okay, so those kind of crazy stories you heard about COVID year housing market are all true. You literally have to jump onto whatever listings that's out there if you really want to get a house during COVID years. Okay, it's not that crazy anymore, but the prices are still increasing. Okay, so if we are looking at, for example, here I'm plotting both the Charlotte area and then the Mecklenburg County. If you look at the average price for the Mecklenburg County, the average price is more than $650,000. All right, so of course the median price is a little bit lower, but the median price is also approaching $500,000 in Mecklenburg County. Okay, so here are the numbers. Like I would consider these kind of post-COVID transition what we are looking at. So from September 2021 to September 2022. Why September? Because we usually our state of housing report data cuts off date is September, so that's what we used. 14.2%. September 2022 to September 2023, 5.3%. So it's slowing down significantly. But if you look at like the last year also, April 2023 to April 2024, Mecklenburg County median price increased 7.1%. It's coming back. And the mortgage interest rate is still there. It's very surprising it didn't really do much to slow down the house price increase. Okay. And the housing market is has been really crazy. So here, this is the plot of the days on the market. So that's between when you put your house on the market and then until it's under contract, right? And if you look at the earlier periods that's plotted here, that's the crazy days where the number of days on the market, this is the median, it's about 3 or 4. Listed 3 or 4 days, it's gone. And then of course, towards the end of 2022 and early of 2023, it went up to about 30 days. You may think this is already like great, but this is still way lower than historical average. Historical average, we are looking at least 3 to 4 months. So the housing market is still remarkably tight. Right? And if you look at recent months, it's going down again. The median days on the market is below 10 days again in April of 2024. So the housing market is still remarkably tight. Supply side is very limited. Okay? And the other way to look at it is that the percentage of houses that are sold above listing prices. So during the crazy days of COVID, more than 60% of houses are sold above listing prices. Now it's about 30. Historical average is about 5%. Okay, so we are still kind of a long way to go to look at the kind of to like solving the housing issue. So here I'm just plotting the house price distribution. Of course, it's very hard for you to see what's going on here, but I have numbers that you should be like able to digest that a little bit easier. Okay, so 2024 year to date, houses that are sold under $150,000. So in the Charlotte metro area, 2.3%. Mecklenburg County, 0.2%. Under $300,000, Charlotte metro area, 19.6%. Mecklenburg County, 9.2%. We used to consider $150,000 is like the entry-level single-family houses. We don't have that. Okay, so here I'm giving you the income you need to have to be able to afford different levels of houses. So 10th percentile, this is lowest 10%, 25th, lowest 25th, 25%. Median, that's median. So because I only have like income kind of the data from 2023, so I'm doing it for 2023. So I listed 5 years. This is six years from 2018 to 2023. Let's look at the median price. You need to make about $76,000 in 2018 to be able to afford a median priced house. When I say afford, you're not spending more than 30% of your gross income in housing related expense. Okay? In 2023, it's almost double. You need to make $152,000 to afford a median priced house. Okay? Two major factors behind it. House price has increased dramatically. Interest rate has increased dramatically. Okay? For those of you who bought houses in 2018, 2019, you have mortgage interest rate around 3%. If you're going to buy a house today, you're looking at 7.5%. All right. So if that doesn't strike your nerve, now let's look at this. 60% of households cannot afford the 10th percentile price. 80% cannot afford the median price. That's affordability or lack of affordability in this market. Okay, so you may say, okay, I'm skipping rental market. The last thing I want to talk about is, let's compare Charlotte with other markets. So we have, in our report, we distinguish between like regional competitors and the national competitors. So first of all, understanding the population, Charlotte has one of the highest population growth in the region, okay? And then even if you compare the national competitors, we still have very high population growth, okay? This is the trend. So people are just moving to this area, okay? So that's the demand side. And in terms of house price, Charlotte certainly has very high house price compared to our regional competitors, right? But we have the highest growth rate. So this is because for regional, I do not have the canopy data. I had to rely on census. So this is from 2021 to 2022, or the average. So the average price during those years, almost 20% in Charlotte areas. And we are still among the highest price growth, even we compare with like other national competitors. Of course, the price level is low, relatively speaking, but do we want to be like Denver, like Portland, like Sacramento? Thanks. So the other kind of affordability measure we often use is what's known as the median multiple, which is the median household price, the median house price divided by the median household income. Okay, and usually we consider housing to be fairly affordable if that multiple is below 3. If it's between 3 and 4, it's already kind of a little bit problematic. If it's above 4, then it's unaffordable, right? So this is Charlotte. This is 2022, actually, was the first year in 2021 was actually the first year in history that multiple across 4 in Charlotte. And then in 2022, it's 4.5. Okay, so we are getting there. Become unaffordable. This is for Charlotte. Of course, if you look at, compare it with, for regional, if you look at the national competitors, similar things. And one of the remarkable thing is the median multiple in Charlotte grew at the fastest rate among all these national competitors. So if we do not do something, it will go up like that. Right? So that's pretty much, that's not mine. So that's pretty much what I'm gonna talk about. So these are all facts. So oftentimes after I make these kind of presentations, people will say, okay, do you have a solution? I was like, yes, I do. Or no, I don't. Yes, I do, because I know exactly what we need to do to solve this problem. Anybody want to guess? Build more houses. The reason I say I know I don't, I do not know what we need to do so that we can build more houses. I think it's up to you guys. You guys have the power, have all the tools you guys have to encourage, to make development easier so that we can build more houses. With that, I end my presentation. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer. Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chu.
So,
Commissioner Winiger,
I'm sorry, I was channeling
I can
my
put the chair thing on yours if you want.
Chair Weldon, I apologize. I was channeling my student, Gunner,
Okay.
First. Yeah, I apologize.
Go ahead. I'll take care of you later.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. A couple slides back, you had this multiplier, this price income growth for, and you had, this one. Could you please explain this slide to me? I apologize. I don't understand it.
So this is the median house price in the region divided by median household income in this region. So the bars are the number and the dot line is the growth rate from last year. So if that number is below 3, no problem. Housing is very affordable, right? So 3 years of household income is equal to the house price, median house price. Okay, so if your income is $100,000, as long as the median house price is below $300,000, then it's affordable, right? So that's this the median multiple, or otherwise known as the price income ratio.
Commissioner Neely.
Thank you, Dr. Chu. I had the opportunity to hear your presentation, I think back in the end of the year. So you're always uncovering questions for me. So several of us in here are real estate professionals in some way. And I wanted to know if your research had uncovered any information regarding the demographics or information regarding the people that are deciding to move here and how that affects what is being built.
So far, the only thing we look at is the average household size, average household size, as you can see. So we are inferring that it's a lot of young single professionals that are moving to this area. We have not specifically looked at the demographics of people who are moving here. Yeah.
Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Dr. Chu. A couple of slides back, you talked about the deficit, the 30,000 unit.
What I'm doing.
That's
Oh no. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. So
I think it was, that slide, 2 back. So we've underbuilt by 30 to 40,000 since 07, 08.
Yeah.
And I hear this number sort of thrown around a lot. We're 30,000 housing units short in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
But your chart that showed, I think prior to this one, that we've been underbuilding prior to 2007, 2008. Do you have an estimate of what the actual deficit, the cumulative deficit is?
Yeah, so that's that's actually my estimates. It's around 30 to 40,000 housing units.
So we were net sort of zero up until the Great Recession. We were building just enough for the growth, or?
Before Great Recession, everything seems to be pretty balanced. So the number of households increasing, it's kind of similar to, very close to the number of housing units we are adding to the market. Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lansdale, and then.
A couple of questions. I'm glad we went back. One is dealing with the housing size slides. I think that was two more back. Yeah,
household size.
Yeah, great. What we know from the national birth rate, we're getting down to 1.62 as the national birth rate. So we're really aligning ourselves with the national trend. And for me, I look at the Great Recession as kind of a new migration for America. People were not able to live where they lived and were finding and seeking other places to live. The piece for me that I would like to kind of reference, I wanted to get those two facts out there for us to mull over at another time. But when you say the solution is more houses,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can you define that a little bit? Because what we're seeing here is that a lot of your presentation was about owner-occupied or single-family homes. We are now approaching a situation where we are embracing the opportunity to tear down the single-family home and build 4 units. Are you saying that the solution is more housing units or more owner-occupied homes?
More housing units.
Okay, regardless of whether they're owned or rented.
True.
Okay. So, for me and for Mecklenburg County, we have, and I did some research over the weekend, almost 20% of our surface area in Mecklenburg County is allocated to paved roads. So how do we build to accommodate these 40,000 units in a year, in 2 years, in 10 years plus? So those are questions for me, and I appreciate your clarification on more houses. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner McDonald.
I had a question, and I apologize if I missed it, but do you have data on how many units we've added per year during this period that you're covering?
So this slide shows the number of housing units that difference before previous years. So you can think of that as the net change, net increase every year. So that's the kind of red bar. So for example, from 2019 to 2021, 2 years, we had a net increase of 55,000 housing units, 2 years combined.
Thank you. Yeah, I did miss that. Thank you.
Anybody else got any more hands? It's my turn. Dr. Chu, this somewhat harkens back to Commissioner Neely's question about demographics, but I was watching a Wall Street Journal thing today, and they talked about this quote unquote silver tsunami of what's happened is the boomers are getting older, but they're holding on to their houses. But, like all people that get older, eventually that ends and there will be more supply on the market. Is there anything in your research that says that might be something that would possibly affect the Charlotte region? All the boomers are supposed to be 70 in a couple of years here. So, then they'll start dropping like flies.
Oh my.
True.
Yeah, I hear you. So for Charlotte, I think that will be less of a concern as long as what kind of things we are observing right now will continue to happen. That is, people are gonna move to this area. So that will keep the demand very, very strong. So if we are looking at a 2% increase in population, then that's 2% increase in population. We are already seeing boomers, as an economist, I sometimes use the word, the boomers exit the market. We are still seeing very strong demand.
Okay. Okay, cool. Did Commissioner Winokur, one more?
I did. It was, unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the direct reference to it, but there was in the recent news cycle, someone had presented some information to the Mecklenburg County Commission recently about population, suggesting that our growth rate meant that it really wasn't increasing at the same rate that I've heard you say and that others have said. I don't remember who it was who gave that. Do you have any recollection yourself or any opinion about that?
I don't. So this is the census data.
Right.
And it's very consistent across the years. So I'm 100% confident about all the data I presented today.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Yeah.
Dr. Chu, thank you very much for coming down to hang out with us. We got another one?
No, I just wanted to add on to what Rick was saying. I do recall that article as well, and I was trying to Google for it earlier, and I found the headline that I remembered, but it was about Mecklenburg County, Virginia. So I wonder if someone misstated something.
And there are all these shows where like people get to a different dimension, and perhaps Commissioner Winokur is in a different dimension today. Just kidding. Dr. Chu, thank you very much for coming down. We all look forward to your report this upcoming November again.
Yes.
Yeah, I love the data, and it's exciting to have you here. Thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to maybe having you back in a year or so. How about that?
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right, great.
Like to come back.
Next on our agenda today is Jen Schuster, and she's the Executive Officer for the Home Builders Association of Greater Charlotte. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Come on up. This is who was the guy? The come on down guy? Was that Bob Barker? No, Bob, not Bob Barker. Oh, okay. I don't know. It's Drew Carey now. The show is still on. And this is the part where it's good to put your trash up or go get another snack or something while we get ready for Jen's presentation. And hopefully Jen will have some good news about building some houses or housing, excuse me, not houses, housing. If I don't watch out, Commissioner Lansdale is going to tackle me in the hallway. Housing.
We're gonna go?
We're good to go.
All right. So thank y'all for having me. Commissioner Welton asked me to come and speak from the home builder point of view. And we heard about Dr. Chu say that we're undersupplied, and I'm about to tell you exactly why. Or some of the reasons why, at least. So here we have from 2020 to 2024, our start rate broken down by county. And we consider a start to be when a foundation is poured. And so some of the issues that we're seeing across the 9-county region is that there's certain areas that are not, for lack of a better way of putting it, carrying their weight. Lancaster County has gone from 1,100 starts to 439. If you could move that box, you would see it's about a 66% decrease in the amount of housing that it's supplying the area. Rowan County, not a big player, but still down. York County, which used to be a powerhouse for our region with Fort Mill, Tegakay, Clover, no longer. It's down 34% over those past 4 years. Lincoln County down 23.8% in housing starts. Mecklenburg County seems to be holding its own. It's got about 2.4% increase over that same time period, but that's relatively flat when you consider what Dr. Chu just showed us about how we're 30 to 40,000 undersupplied. The one that's been growing the fastest has been Iredell County. We've seen a lot of starts come out in Statesville and Morrisville, who seem to be pretty pro-growth right now. And so what's going on here? What's the big issue? Why are all these counties losing housing units? First of all, we have a sewer moratorium that is in effect in Cabarrus County and Union County. And so Cabarrus and Union County if we were to go back to 2018, they would have been 30% of our market combined. They were both the fastest growing counties in the state at that time. Cabarrus County in 2020 went under the WASAC, which is the Water Sewer Authority of Cabarrus County. They started their expansion plan for their sewer system. What that has meant over the last 4 years is that in order to get sewer allocation in Cabarrus County, you have to go to the individual towns, Concord, Harrisburg, Midland, Mount Pleasant, and you have to petition their planning departments and their city councils to give you that allocation. Concord, in its last sewer allocation meeting, which was in March, they only do it quarterly. They had over 1,170 lots, so split between single family detached and townhomes, go up for allocation. Only 170 were passed. So we're talking about a huge decrease in what's coming through the pipelines in Cabarrus County. Then you add in Union. So Union County has 2 water and sewer treatment plants that need expansions, but actually they're not funded right now. They're not being worked on. It's 12 Mile Creek and Crooked Creek. So 12 Mile Creek, it's at 89% capacity. Crooked Creek's at 86%. Or if you were a home builder and you wanted to develop in Indian Trail, Wesley Chapel, Waxhaw, you would have to go and petition that town and petition the Union County Commissioners to get sewer allocation. And then you would be put in a queue. The queue for 12 Mile Creek is 26 projects deep. The queue for Crooked Creek has 15. So effectively, it's taken these areas out of home builders' targets for acquisitions, and it's made it incredibly difficult to get anything through planning. Then we have these areas. So I like to call these guys the large lot requirement areas, where if you were to go to the planning department as an acquisitioner and you would just say, oh, I've got 40 acres out on such and such road, and I'm thinking of upzoning it, do an MDR, which is medium density, 2.5 per acre, nothing crazy, still single family. They would tell you, my city council doesn't have an appetite for that right now. So that is Monroe, most of South Carolina, Indian Land, the Panhandle. If you are outside of Roseland, which is the big Lennar development, 1,800 lots, they have taken away your ability to do MDR. And it's just LDR now, which is low density residential, which is 1 per acre. We have Clover, which Allison Love is a district lady out in York County, and she vehemently just despises growth. So we all know to stay out of there. And when I say we, I've been in acquisition before, so I've actually done this work, and I've seen these problems firsthand. The last one is Lincoln County. So Lincoln County has a 1 acre lot requirement. So you can't build in Lincoln County anymore. And then, so because all of everything in South Carolina, there's these big lot requirements, everybody went down on 77 to this Chester-Richburg exit. They have about 3,500 lots that are going through development and entitlement, and now they put a moratorium on the area. So, and it used to be York, the city of York, that everybody ran to develop. They put a moratorium on us. So South Carolina, you can do a moratorium there, whereas you can't here. So then, where's growth going? The map on the right shows you what is going through pre-submittal and entitlements. And you can see by the big circles that most of our growth is going to the northwest. It's going to Hickory, Conover, Newton, Statesville, Mooresville, Shelby, Gastonia, not Belmont and Mount Holly. It takes 3 years to go through rezoning in Belmont. But The 1976 down on the bottom, that's Chester, who just implemented the moratorium. And what you can see is that we used to depend on the Matthews, the Mint Hills, the Fort Mills, the 30-minute away commutes for housing, and we can't anymore. So now everybody is stuck going to that tertiary Hickory, that outer layer that's an hour away and driving in. At least one person is driving in a household. I've left Mecklenburg County out on purpose. So from what I can gather in Mecklenburg, because most of what's going through the pipeline right now, and we have Allison if she'll comment, I don't most of what I can see in the pipeline is that there's about 1,300 lots that are going through, or they're being upzoned, right? They're N1A, N1B, and they're being upzoned to N2B to get a traditional quad 4-unit townhome, right? So that's about 1,300 lots. Then we've got about 2,500 lots that have vested rights under this UDO, which will be by right development. And then we've got another 3,500 that are going to be probably squashed when City Council votes on May 20th for the text amendment. So that means that we should be supplying 5,300 to keep up with pace. And we're only going to have about 3,500 that are going to, it's really going to affect 2025, 2026 pipeline. So let's talk about what this did to land prices. So, and I was in the acquisition field at the time this was happening. So I can tell you, I put a piece of property on W.T. Harris in the Plaza under contract in 2020. It was about 40 acres. I paid $86,000 per acre for that. If that parcel was out there today, it would be $250,000 an acre. So from 2021 to 2022, we saw residential land prices, anything over 10 acres that can be developed for residential, bought by a builder, go up 40%. Then we were promised, you know, more density from the UDO. It went up 125% from 2022 to 2023. And I can guarantee you it's over $200,000 per acre today for a developable residential acre in Mecklenburg County. And so what the market said, it said, here's an acre, you can put 4 units on it, 5 units on it. We want $50,000 per unit. And that's how they started underwriting things, the brokers and that's how competitive it is. And you're going to get 10 offers for it. So let's talk about the conservation subdivision text amendment. Sorry, I have to go there. Before we passed the new UDO, we had the R3, R4 cluster, right? So the pre-UDO cluster with public roads, that left us 82.5% of developable land in a community. If you did the pre-UDO with the 25% tree safe cluster, you got 75% developable land. The current UDO with the conservation subdivision text, we still have about 70% of the land that we could use for houses. But with the text amendment, we're going to go down to 47%. That'll be usable land for us to develop houses on. And so on April 15th, when the text amendment was read, I snapped the picture from the audience. And so this is what Allison showed everyone, you know, your sketch plan under the current UDO conservation subdivision text amendment versus what it will be in the, you know, once the text amendment is passed. It goes from 220 units down to 170. You're losing 50 units, right? You're also losing 50 units and paying $163,000 per acre. So what does that do? Your total lot cost jumps up to about $140,000 per lot on your home. We do in the industry, we say your total lot cost of what you've developed should be 30% of your base plan pricing. That is our rule of thumb. If you were to ask us 5 years ago, it should have been 20, but it's gone up. So now it's 30%. So that means that with the pre-UDO, the cluster and the cluster subdivision that you could have done. And with the current UDO, about 49% of Charlotteans could afford that base plan price at the end of the day. But with the proposed conservation text amendment, only about 36% can afford it. And it's a simple, the price per acre has doubled, in some cases tripled. Land development costs since the start of COVID have been up dramatically. And so it's kind of those two things together, which is making it unaffordable to develop in the city of Charlotte. We did our own at the HBA. And so this is actually a piece of property off McGee Road, or sorry, it's off Beatty's Ford Road. It's called McGee Place. And so this actually went through planning under the R4 cluster. And this is what was approved and is being built right now. It's almost built out. We were to take this same parcel and use the new text amendment. Here's what it would look like today. And so you're going from 80 units down to 66. And if you do the math and you back everything out, you do your lot construction, your per acre price is now 163. Half of Charlotte could have afforded that before, but now only 26.5% can. And your qualifying income has jumped from 81,000 to 126. So it's not just supply and affordability that I want everybody to realize. For every 100 homes that we build, it's 381 jobs that are created. For the real estate industry right now, in the resale market, we are the bread and butter for realtors. Nobody's listing their house. They are completely dependent on new home sales. So we're not talking about just the trades that are out of a job. We're talking about realtors and loan originators and all of the people that, you know, home building is kind of like a big shark, and then it's got all the symbiotic relationships that happen and the things that feed off of it. And then after you build out the community itself creates 63 jobs annually every year. So home building positively impacts the local economy on every level. And then this chart right here is by the National Association of Home Builders. It's a national number, but I talked to their chief economist, Robert Dietz, and he said that this is in line with what we're seeing in Charlotte. It's a little bit old. It's from 2021. They're redoing the study right now. And it says that for the $394,000 home, $94,000 of it is it's laws, it's policy, it's the red tape. So it's about 25% of a home and its costs are directly related to the policies that are passed. And so, you know, if it would have been 2020 and we had that same piece of property on W.T. Harris and the conservation subdivision text came out, I would have said we can do both. You know, we can afford as developers to develop this property and, you know, increase our open space requirements. Unfortunately, with the way that the market has just, I mean, that second tier is gone. And that has pushed our land prices up to the point where we can no longer do what the city is asking us to do and put out an attainably priced product. So I guess it comes down to local leaders, right? You guys have a decision to make. You can allow for policy and push policy that can produce attainably priced product and supply the market with more homes, or we can continue to reduce density and supply in pursuit of design standards that 1/3 of our population can afford. The Home Builders Association is asking for, we believe that the text amendment is going to pass on May 20th. And we're asking that the compact development that's supposed to follow be moved just as quickly as the conservation subdivision text amendment has, because you're cutting off our ability to supply a market that is just severely undersupplied. That's all I've got. Not very happy news, right?
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Jen. Did you watch our meeting the other day? We had a
I
fun
watched all of
meeting.
them.
Yeah. Do I have any questions, commissioners? Oh, look, the hands are up. I'm gonna go from left to right here. Neely, Gaston, did I get Winokur in there? Seeley, Lansdale. Let's roll.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for your presentation. Hopefully you heard me say that, several of us in here are real estate professionals. And I have to tell you, I'm all about beautification, making Charlotte amazing, making Charlotte beautiful, those things that add to the quality of life and not just the quantity. The quantity is definitely important, and they're both factors we have to consider. So you brought it up. So you mentioned the text amendment as a huge part of your presentation. So a couple of things I had been asking about when it came to that amendment, since we're there, is some of the costs associated with the home building. And you mentioned the $140,000 as the lot cost. Do you have an itemized list of what that lot cost entails and the difference over the years? Do you have an itemized?
I'd have to get it for you.
Yeah.
Essentially, so what we're saying, the lot cost jumps up because of two things, right? So number one, you're paying more for your price per acre. That's just out the gate. Number two is we're being required to put in the same amount of roads. If you look back on the two different maps, it's the same amount of roads, same amount of curbs, same amount of gutter, less units. So you're spreading those costs, those horizontal development costs over less units, which makes your lot
costs increase. Okay.
Jump up.
Yeah, thank you for that. But, have you guys, and what studies have you done to show what current development has done over time? So some of the previous building to the current standards, how are you going back to look at those other subdivisions and seeing, what's happening as far as, neighborhood growth, neighborhood change, maybe the lots that you built in 2010, what do they look like now? Are they still up to the same standards? Have those neighborhoods been affected by fires? Have fire trucks been able to get through on those lots? Are you looking at anything, as it relates to what your development has done over time?
So I would say that, the HBA itself doesn't we don't commission development reports or anything like that. But, I think Dr. Chu's report where the home price has jumped 50% in,
We see that.
I don't know how long. I mean, they're certainly appreciating, I guess is my point, and appreciating fast.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gaston.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. It was very interesting. So I have a question. One of the things you talked about was, changing before the amendment and after. So one of the things you have there says, that $93,000 accounts for that final home price based on it is now. But we all know, and I'm just surmising, that even if it went back and they didn't have that same cost, you're not going to reduce the housing price because of you have less expenses now. I mean, that's just unrealistic. How does the HBA plan to account for that? Because if you're able to sell a house now, say for $400,000, but your housing costs now are less, you're not going to reduce that price to $350,000 because you have to pay less. You're still going to sell it for $400,000 or
I actually
more.
think that that's a business model decision, right? So we have builders out in the market who sell 20 to 25 homes a month at $300,000, $350,000. They're the LGIs and the true homes that go further out into the market to get that entry level. And no, they don't make the same margin on each home, but when you add in the volume of it, I'm sure they're doing quite nice. So I think that that's a business decision for any builder, whether they want to hit that, entry level market. There's a lot of builders out there who don't do entry level products because they think that will affect their higher products. So they don't want to do the span. But yeah, I think it's a business decision for any builder. And there's certainly benefits to going lower in the volume that you can sell.
I completely understand. I just don't see, and again, this is my, own personal, even if the land costs are lower, I just don't see builders saying, oh, the land costs are less, so let's reduce the price of this house, whether you're building entry level or luxury, semi-custom, whatever you're building. That's just a thought put out there. Thank you.
Commissioner Winokur.
Would, would eliminating parking minimum requirements impact housing supply and affordability? And if so, how?
I'm not a nitty gritty, right? I'm not an engineer. I come from the acquisition world and the data world. I do know that I hear developers in all our meetings say that we don't need, 10 feet for a drive. We could go down to 9 feet. And then the driveway requirements that are currently in our UDO force us into an alley loaded triplex, because either you do an alley loaded triplex or you're going to have a shared driveway for 2 of your units, and a consumer will not buy that. So I think that there's certain regulation that's been placed around driveways in residential building that has definitely affected what we can deliver to the market.
Sealy, next. Let's go.
I had a question, but it was pretty much covered here. When will this be presented to council?
May 20th.
Can it happen sooner?
I'm available if they want to hear it. So we did try on May 15th, but there was a lot of confusion. Or April 15th, I'm sorry. There was a lot of confusion in the audience that night. So we didn't really get to speak.
Commissioner Lansdale.
Yeah, if you could go back to your slides, or really talking about the moratoriums and the different limitations in the beginning. And while she's doing that, for the Planning Commission, can you guys imagine what 33 million gallons of water is? Can you imagine that concept of 33 million gallons of water? Can anybody? All right, so 1 million gallons is a 5-story building, 50 foot high building, 50 foot square. That's 1 million gallons. So 2 million would be this building. 33 million gallons a day. A day. We transfer to that yellow. And here they are saying we have to limit growth because of why? Stormwater and sewer moratorium. All right. The growth that's happening is because of a basin transfer. That 33 million gallons a day that's exiting Mecklenburg County is going to supplement those types of facilities being built around our county. This is why it's so important that we have our infrastructure clarity before we start talking about land use. If it takes Mecklenburg County water for Union County to grow, is that the right thing to do? Is that the right thing to build houses for? How do we affect this downstream? We control our growth by our resources and accessibility to those resources. That's a big issue for me. I also had kind of a conflict with the presentation. Great presentation though. But the notion that we have an enhanced burden to not support building streets to public design standards. As we learned last week, if you go to your slide, it talks about the unaffordability. Let's see if we can get that, or that had that graph there. One more, maybe 2 more. There we go. As it was stated by staff last week, $30,000 per unit is what it can cost to upgrade a private alley or street to a publicly basic level standard. So if you add $30,000 to any of those total unit costs, that makes it completely unaffordable if we don't increase the importance of our transportation investment to have roadways built to public city and state standards as a priority to any land use changes that we move forward. Water, roadways and access. We can make compromises to get to Dr. Chu's housing units and make those later. But if we don't have that foundational conversation about our infrastructure improvements, we're going to be behind the 8 ball again. that the only reason we're going to be building and allowing Union County and Cabarrus County to have those units is because of the water basin transfer, access to resources, transportation and natural. So that's an important part for me, and I want to make sure it stands in opposition to some of these pieces. But we're thankful to staff to really give a number to the impact of building private roads and private alleys as a feature of increased housing unit when we have a rezoning. And we've got to make sure that that UDO process is represented in our street designs manual as well, so that we have a marked step in those two as we move forward. These are, of course, my own opinions, and I appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner Lansdale. I think I got everybody. Jen, you definitely gave us something to think about. I appreciate it. I don't want these meetings to be, we shouldn't sit in here and just be comfortable in our chairs. I don't think that serves anybody any good. But now we have one more presentation from Lindsay Reeser. And Lindsay's going to talk to us about the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association, and we'll talk a little bit about, I guess, supply of apartments and things of that nature, and trying to get the whole view of this adventure today. So hopefully, is this fun? Are we having fun yet? Okay. Yeah.
We can have a round of applause for Jen. She did a great job. Well, I will admit I am not a data person. I am the Director of Government Affairs, so I work with people and ideas. I worked in Washington, D.C. for 10 years. I worked on Capitol Hill for 6 years for Congressman G.T. Thompson from Pennsylvania's 15th District and Congressman William Timmons from South Carolina's 4th District. I've been in Charlotte for about 2 years and at GCA for a little bit over a year. Our mission and our vision is that we promote legislative advocacy, which is my department. We also promote education for our members. We have an entire education department. So we provide classes for our on-site and maintenance teams. We provide networking opportunities for our members. We had our golf tournament last week. We also have our trade show and our Bravo Awards at the end of the year. It's our big end of the year awards gala. We also support housing quality, value, and choice throughout the greater Charlotte community. And we pride ourselves on being the leading rental housing resource and advocate for the greater Charlotte region. What is the greater Charlotte region, you might ask? It encompasses 11 counties, 10 of which are in North Carolina. We also represent York County, South Carolina. We are members of the National Apartment Association, the Apartment Association of North Carolina, and the South Carolina Apartment Association. The benefit to our owner operators to being members of the GCAA is that they get access to what's known as the lease. It's the official lease that the National Apartment Association gives its members. The other option is to draft one in-house, which can be very costly and timely. So that's a huge benefit for owner and operators to join the GCAA. We serve over 1,000 apartment communities. This number is constantly growing as our membership increases, over 200,000 units. 300 suppliers. Suppliers is the industry term that we use for our vendors. So anyone supplying a good or service that is not on site. So all of our landscapers, our attorneys, anyone doing our fitness equipment, those would be our supplier members. We have 200 owners / managements and 31 small owner members. We define a small owner member as those with 50 units or less. Brief overview of everything coming down the pipeline in Charlotte. Again, I am not a numbers person, but I will tell you one of the cornerstones of our organization is housing affordability. And one way that we try to do that is to be creative and to partner with other people in our community to kind of beat the drum around housing affordability. So we have started quarterly meetings with Duke Energy and their Carolinas multifamily team. So we bring in our builders and developers to their experts, and we try to explain to them, whenever there's a delay on a project, that comes at a cost to the renter. So the first meeting was a little bit tense because our builders and developers wanted more transparency regarding the delay with transformers. And Charles, he's our Duke Energy point of contact, was very transparent and explained, there's the tariff issue going on in China. But we explained to them, we might start a project and we're expecting to charge roughly $1,300 for a studio. But if we're waiting 2 months for a transformer to turn on the electricity, it might sit there untouched for an additional 2 to 3 months. And we might have to end up charging $1,600 to $1,700 for a studio. That's a completely different demographic of the person that could be renting from that unit. So it's very important that not only are we building, but we're building as quickly and as safely as possible, because any delay comes at the cost of the owner operator, which passes down to the resident. We've seen a lot of changes in the type of spaces that are being rented. So right after 2021, there was very little vacancy amongst the studios that were being rented. We think a lot of that was attributed to people wanting to live alone post-pandemic, a lot of the mental health issues that we've seen going on in our country. Now there's a much larger vacancy in the Charlotte market for studios. We are seeing more people living with roommates as inflation has increased. And what Jen was saying earlier, there's a large delay in home ownership amongst the Charlotte market. So more people are renting instead of owning. The studios and 1 bedrooms are pretty much the same cost. Obviously, this is per average. These are not numbers that you would necessarily see in Uptown. But another issue that we are really focused around, that I'm very passionate about with housing affordability, is public transportation. That's something Douglas has spoken to our group about. When our developers are getting ready to build, they need to know where to build. So they're very passionate about finding where it's going to make sense for lower income residents. So we're very excited about the proposed red line and everything that's coming up with the city's 2040 plan, and that determines where our developers really want to build. We have a lot of projects currently under construction, and we're constantly finding creative ways to get around housing affordability. So a few years ago, Charlotte introduced their first carless apartment community. It's called The Joinery. It is in Optimist Hall. And a lot of our developers are watching it with cautious optimism. I moved here from Washington, D.C., where I didn't have a car. I was a very proud member of the carless community. I am back on the road after a 10-year hiatus. My license plate says pass me. Don't honk, just go around me. But I am very passionate about public transportation and finding alternatives. So a parking spot can cost a developer anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000. That's a very large number. So if we want to think housing affordability, trying to find ways to get around parking is one way to do it, but it's all about location. So we need to make sure that it's near bike paths. We need to make sure that it's near public transportation. We need to make sure that it's near buses. It's not enough just to build the public transportation, right? We see cities like Los Angeles, Atlanta, who have the public transportation, but it's not safe. So no one's utilizing it. So it's very important that not only are we building it, but we're making it safe for all of our residents. As you can see, Charlotte is not slowing down like the rest of the economy. We have 115 people moving here per day, but with growth comes change. We are very fortunate enough to have Mayor Pro Tem Dante Anderson speak to our members last week. And I asked her about her vote in support of the Piper Glen development. It was a very heated zoning meeting, which there was a lot of NIMBYism, no in my backyard activists in the room. And I asked her, and well, first I thanked her for her support for our industry, and then asked her what her logic was behind that vote. I know she is very passionate about the environment, but when was it appropriate to build? And she explained that she went to the Piper Glen development and she saw that it was a low population density. A lot of the activists that were opposed to this development said that there were already buildings blocking the view. She saw that there weren't very many apartment communities blocking the view. So that's just an example of a city leader who understands the need for housing, and that change is hard. But unfortunately, change is inevitable, right? Every city is changing. You're either changing for the better or you're changing for the worse. But with change comes some not so positive change as well. We have seen a large uptick in violence on our site, specifically with residents and our leasing managers. Housing is a very emotional issue. Much more so, I would say, than the other basic needs. And a lot of people want to take it out on the rental property owners. They feel very entitled to their house when in fact it's not their house. It's a piece of property that they're renting from someone else, but they get very fired up. So that's something that we are very cognizant about. Obviously, if there is something violent that happens, the cops are called. And unfortunately, that leasing property manager usually does not come to work the next day and usually ends up quitting, which causes very high turnover amongst those who are on site. And so that comes into a lot of labor issues with the rental housing industry. It's just a very high turnover, high burnout industry. And that's something that we're really working towards. The problem with increased crime and increased violence is that it comes at a cost to the owner operator. So what should our property managers do to create a safe space for their residents? Should they put in more lighting in the parking lot? Should they put in a 24-hour security guard? Should they put in more security cameras? These are all great ways to make residents feel safer, but that comes at a cost, and that affects housing affordability. So it's a double-edged sword. We want to be safe and we want to provide quality housing. We also want to be affordable. And here's my bread and butter. What are GCAA's legislative priorities? We took a group of 15 owner operators and suppliers to Washington, D.C. for our annual lobby day sponsored by the National Apartment Association. One of our huge efforts is ending the CARES Act, which is a post-COVID moratorium where a rental housing provider is required to give a non-rent paying resident a 30-day notice to vacate before beginning the eviction process. So basically someone not paying rent gets to stay in their unit for free for an additional 30 days before the eviction process begins. So the Respect State Housing Laws Act is a piece of legislation that we are very passionate about passing because it greatly affects housing affordability. The YIMBYism, the Yes in My Backyard Act, similar to what Jen was talking about, lowering barriers to development, the less red tape, the better. Reforming the Section 8 program, this is one that I'm very passionate about as well. I used to work for the chairman of the House Agriculture Program, and I would love to see Section 8 be as easy to use as a SNAP program. Unfortunately, there's so much additional paperwork and our leasing managers are already overworked that they just don't have the bandwidth. The Section 8 program is voluntary and we want to make it voluntary and not mandatory, but we want to make it easy to use. And right now there's just so much red tape and there's so much headache that a lot of property owners say, hey, this is a great idea. I really want to help. I really want to give back, but we're already at capacity. We're already overworked. So we really want to reform the Section 8 program to make it as easy to use so that as many property owners can use it as possible. Recently, we were in Raleigh. I had 38 owner operators and suppliers lobbying at the state level for House Bill 551. It has recently passed the House and is now over in the Senate. We are also, I'm very excited to say, working hand in hand with the Mecklenburg County Clerk of Courts office. So we obviously have evictions, and with the evictions, there have been significant delays in the appeals process. So basically the Clerk of Courts office has been operating in COVID era timeframes, so very long delays with the appeals process. It can take anywhere from an additional 2 to 6 months, which comes at a cost to the owner operator, which goes back to housing affordability. So we had some virtual discussions with Clerk Alyssa Chingari and said, hey, how can we help you? We want to make this process as streamlined as possible. We want to promote housing affordability, but we're getting tied up with the legal system. How can we help? And she said, I'm extremely short-staffed. Will you please lobby for more support staff in the office? And we said, absolutely. So she sent us a one-pager with some fabulous statistics, one being that the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts said that the Mecklenburg County Clerk of Courts office is short-staffed 36 full-time positions. That's a significant number. So we did what we could to lobby for additional funding for the Clerk of Courts office. Has anyone in this room worked with the eCourts Odyssey e-filing system? What's been your experience?
It has not been a very efficient system. The chief judge has just been fired by
Judge Trosh,
by the Supreme Court. because of her accurate critiques of the e-filing system.
Yes, absolutely. The eCourt system is not going anywhere. It is North Carolina's electronic filing system for their legal documentation. Unfortunately, we have to work with this. It's a very clunky system. We have had a lot of issues with rent bonds where an attorney would pay a rent bond and then they would call the clerk's office and the clerk or the clerk staff would say, oh, that rent bond hasn't been paid. And so then they would pay again and there'd be a duplicate expense. The system doesn't work, but unfortunately the system's not going away. So we can partner with the clerk of court's office to say, hey, let's at least get more feet on the ground. Let's get more bodies in your office to try to work hand in hand as closely as possible. So that's what we're fighting for on the local level. We also have a Rental Housing Alliance PAC. National Apartment Association has their PAC where they fund federal industry advocates. The Apartment Association of North Carolina has a state PAC. Apartment Association of South Carolina has their PAC. Our local PAC funds city council races. So we backed some city council races last fall. We're excited to do more this fall. And how can you get involved with the GCAA? You can follow our website for new upcoming events. And you can also listen to our Morning Perks podcast, in which Bill Clements interviewed me if you want to hear more about my experience on Capitol Hill. But I am open to any and all questions.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Commissioner Weldon.
Yeah, so I have two questions. City government has worked under the assumption for years that height and density bonuses, sorry, I had to write it, are an attractive concept for apartment developers. But are there other bonuses or incentives that you think the industry would be in favor of in return for more affordable units?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yes. What incentives would the industry be in favor of in return for a larger number of affordable units?
Less red tape. We want to make it as easy to build as possible. So making the development process go by quickly.
So less government.
Correct.
Okay. And then what is your association doing? So obviously there's housing shortage in Mecklenburg County. We have beat ourselves over the head with that today. What is your association doing about apartment complexes that are over 50% Airbnb? Because I lived in one and it wasn't fun.
That's a good question. That is based on the owner's policy. The owner management company, they can set their own policy. I'm not familiar with that. I'm sorry.
Interesting. And then I also had a question about this bill that y'all are supporting. So I have a disability. I have trigeminal neuralgia. It's a chronic pain disorder. So in this bill, it is saying that I would have to provide proof if I were to get a service animal, and I would have to tell y'all what my medical issues are. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's in the bill.
Ooh, that's messed up. I'm just saying.
Sorry. That's so messed up.
Thank you, Commissioner Weldon. Are you done? Done, Becca? Okay.
How many units did you say your organization covers here in the greater Charlotte region?
About 200,000.
And out of the population of apartment units, what percentage is that? Is that 50%, 80%, 30%?
I'm sorry, what was the question? Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so like what universe of apartments does your organization
Conventional and
service?
affordable housing.
And so of the 200,000, how many, what's the total population of apartments or whatever? In other words, what percentage are you guys out of that inventory?
Those are 100% our members.
Correct.
So not every apartment building is a member of the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association.
And I apologize if I'm not asking the question
I'm sorry.
clearly. So your members, 100% of your members, right? How big is the total population of apartments in the greater Charlotte area? In other words, are you guys 50% of that population?
Oh, I see what you're saying. We're probably 75%.
And how many units are you guys contending are tied up in eviction processing annually?
That's a really good question. I would say How many units? I would say of every building, it really varies. It's anywhere from
Like total annually?
annually,
approximately.
each apartment community can have anywhere from 1 to 10 evictions.
So of your population of units, how many do you think are tied up in eviction processes annually, currently?
Probably 10%.
Okay. So you think making evictions more efficient will do what? Increase affordable housing?
Correct. Because it's less money that the owner operator has to spend on attorneys. And it's more money that they can spend. Less money that it's less money that the owner operator has to spend on legal fees. And so they can lower the cost of renting.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else? We're good? Thank you, Lindsay. Everybody give Lindsay a hand. All right, everybody, we got about 15 minutes here, and I think we can cover everything. Allison is going to talk just briefly about UDO text amendment. Which one are you going to talk about?
All three of them.
All three of them? Okay. All right.
I just want to put out in the room that there are 10 goals in the comprehensive plan, not one, about housing. And that while housing is a huge importance to our city, of course, that there are other priorities that include equitable mobility, that include our natural environments, that include 10-minute neighborhoods. And so while housing is important and it's a math problem, it doesn't mean that you just throw out infrastructure and all of the elements that we promised the community that we would also be prioritizing for our city's future. So I wanted to mention that. The compact development form, those development standards are scheduled right now if City Council works with us, which I've been given every indication that they will, is up for council vote on June the 24th. So before they go on break. The latter phase 3 is something that we'll start talking to you about when we have an opportunity, hopefully soon. And that will look at a whole series of residential updates that we think will improve our housing opportunities. Because again, this is a math problem. And so it's about density and getting density where it's right. So Commissioner Wilden, one of the things that actually I just talked to Housing and Neighborhood Services about the other day is that what is maybe more important for an affordable project is what I'm going to call, and actually I'm going to quote Clay Grubb for a second. It was his idea, is a horizontal density bonus, like that a height bonus because you're switching construction types isn't always valuable. So what can you do to increase the actual footprint? And so talking through some things like that, there's other things about cottage court overlays and wanting to make those by right. I basically tasked Warren Wooten at Housing and Neighborhood Services. I was like, give me anything that you can think of to go into this bucket of text amendments or text amendment in phase 3 that'll make it easier for the people that you talk to every day to provide housing. So phase 3, I wish council wasn't going on a 6-week break because it kind of puts a 6-week delay in getting some of these things moved forward. But phase 3 will ultimately be a series of things to also fine tune and add more tools to the toolbox that we don't have. Because again, we are all about housing, but we want to have housing that comes with the other elements that are important to the community, including trees and infrastructure and sidewalks, different housing types, and a number of different elements that we talk to the community about. So thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Guys, I composed a beautiful email 2 weeks ago, and none of you received it because it's behind like the main window, and I didn't press send. I just found it. It's technology is great, and this relates to the text amendment and text amendments coming forward. I would like to do, last month we had a discussion about the conservation text amendment, and it spilled over on our regular meeting. We weren't able to have the architects talk. You know, we had to put it on rain pace. I would like to do a special meeting so that we can have the full commission understand the conservation text amendment that's currently a week away from, I guess, going to council, the compact text amendment, compact development text amendment, which is a month and a half from going to council, and this nebulous phase 3 thingamabob, that's a technical term. And so we can have a 2-hour meeting where we can discuss that. You guys can ask all the questions, make all the points that you want to have. Can I get some consensus on whether we could do that 2 weeks from now? Anybody in there with 2 weeks from now, same bat time, same bat place? That's Memorial Day. All right, so well,
I mean, I'm not doing it.
oh yeah, well, getting in the building isn't going to work. Can we do the Tuesday? No.
Our information sessions on compact development for the public are on that Tuesday, the 28th at noon and at 6 p.m. So we would prefer to not have that conflict at the same time. And you're welcome to attend the public information sessions also at that time.
Can I work with you guys offline to get a date for this thing? Yeah. Is everybody interested and want to find out the information? We just need to get a date, and we can't go to the next Monday because that city council has all their committee meetings that Monday. So blah, blah, blah. We'll get there. All right. Now we're down to doing comments and homework. Next month, we're going to have Chuck McShane's going to come in. He was formerly with Charlotte Alliance, and he's now with CoStar. But he's going to talk about office market and bring us a ton of data about that. We're also going to have the folks from the Quality of Life Explorer come in and talk a bunch about data. And I know that for those of you who've done zoning this year, I've been living in Quality of Life Explorer because it's very, it's very useful. So that'll be our next month. Now, let's go around the room and just give me 3 things that you did in the last month. I'm going to begin with Commissioner Russell.
On the spot there. So I've been working with University City Partners, and we're going to be holding a joint session talking about growth and development at University City at the end of the month. And I will keep everybody updated when we get all of that planned out.
Cool beans. Make sure you invite me. Commissioner Harvey.
No new updates.
Okay. Commissioner Shaw.
Work and commission related, attended the ULI National Conference, just in terms of furthering understanding and research on development and cool developments.
Cool beans. Commissioner Neely.
I've been working on learning our city, walking tours, award ceremonies, and other stuff.
All right. Some of us live the rich life. Commissioner Blumenthal.
Same, looking at touring a lot of the new developments around town, working with Sustain Charlotte, both with the award ceremony and also at one of their other meetings. And then trying to get everything set up for this planning committee meeting, which I want to make sure that even the zoning commissioners are invited to next week. We are having kind of after Katz comes and does a presentation on microtransit, which may be of interest to many of you. We're following that up with kind of a community leader roundtable, right? So we're bringing in Greg Asciuto with Charlotte East, as well as the commissioners that we already have on planning committee, and kind of talking about 1 year out, where are we with the UDO in terms of kind of more boots on the ground community impact. So more the grassroots level than a lot of what we talk about in this setting. So would love if, as many as you can come as possible. And again, that'll be next Tuesday from 5 to 7, just down the hall.
Commissioner Gaston.
So I too was at the Sustain Charlotte Awards. And then this Thursday, I'm going to read this because I have no idea. WFAE is having a local news impact summit on affordable housing. And I am going to be one of the panelists for their session, The Tale of Two Cities, which discusses the holistic, I'm reading this, the holistic approach to what the city of Charlotte looks like for residents in zip codes, exploring poverty, economic mobility, and access to core services. And how do these things fit into our approach to affordable housing solutions? How does the identity of Charlotte vary across different neighborhoods and experiences? So it's myself, Jamal Kennard with Lakeview, very vocal gentleman. Salma from Our Bridge for Kids, and then somebody from the city of Charlotte with the Quarters of Opportunity.
Okay, great.
It's me. So, yeah,
That's you.
that's me.
Surprise. There you go. Did I cap that up well? It was very good.
You did a very good job. Very good job.
Okay.
I can read
Where,
well.
where was that at?
It is at, I think it's gonna be online too, but it is somewhere. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, Monica, where is it?
We have a meeting in 5 minutes, so we
Yes.
can send out information.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wilden.
Just UDO info sessions.
All right, Commissioner Winokur.
Trying to recruit new members to the planning commission, and as the voice of the Elizabeth 8K, was able to spot Max Oliver in the crowd leading the charge for the Charlotte Planning Department at the Elizabeth 8K the other day. It was great to see
Okay.
him and 1,300 other neighbors come out.
Awesome. Commissioner McDonald.
I attended a bunch of the Red Line public input meetings. A couple of community meetings for rezonings in our area. And a lot more I wrote down on this piece of paper, but you wanted 3, so I gave you 2.
Okay. Commissioner Sealy.
I went to a number of community meetings, namely Valvoline. I was on WSOC talking about our need to invest in transit. And then next week, I will be taking my talents to Raleigh to advocate for arts funding for the city of Charlotte. So I guess that was in the past, so maybe that one doesn't count. Third one. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. You were on the South End tour with a couple of us.
Oh, and I was on the South End
Yeah.
tour. I did a couple other things too. I'm
Yeah.
on a coalition for affordable housing that I've been attending meetings on, and then also a coalition for safe streets. So
Cool beans. Commissioner Lansdale.
Well, I've attended the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization, the CRTPO meetings. I also attended the North Carolina Association for Metropolitan Planning Association meeting in New Bern. I also attended the North Carolina Traffic Safety Conference in Greenville this past month. And then I also attended the WFA event on the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stewart.
I attended Commissioner Rodriguez McDowell's community meeting in South Charlotte last month on stormwater. It was very interesting. Lots of folks from the county and the city and others, really not one single owner of stormwater, I found out, which was very interesting. It's a lot of different groups that work together. It's amazing that they can pull it off with all the sort of hands that are involved. And I look forward to attending Councilmember Molina's event in East Charlotte that I think is being rescheduled for sometime very soon on housing development and growth in the East Charlotte area.
Thank you very much. I did about a dozen meetings and miscellaneous stuff. Saw lots of you there. Excited to see everyone out in the community and doing things. One thing that's happening this weekend, let's see, it's called Eastside Rising, and I cannot remember who the sponsors are. I think Melina and Mark Jarrell and Dante, and I feel like I'm missing one. But that's going to be at the Bowflex on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. Go to the Mecklenburg County website, and you can, I think it's called Eastside Rising. So register for that if you can. All right, folks, the homework for next month is the book, The New Geography of Jobs by Enrico Moretti. And it is a fantastic book. I just went through it for about the third or fourth time a couple of months ago. I cannot say enough about how wonderful the book is. Here's our meetings for the next month or so. That's it. Do I hear a motion for us to adjourn?
Motion, Wilden.
Second,
All
Shaw.
right, people, get out of here. Stick a fork in us. We are done.